I think it's very difficult to put a stake in the ground and say people don't need flexibility and freedom. They need rigidity in the workplace. That, to me, doesn't play out too well. I think freedom wins.
Welcome to Direct Approach, a bi-weekly podcast hosted by Wayne Moorehead, filled with timely insights, fresh perspectives, and actionable takeaways from your direct selling executive peers to help fuel the growth and evolution of your business. The way we earn, live, and define success is being rewritten in real time. As millions gravitate toward flexibility and freedom, the definition of work itself is evolving. In this episode, Wayne sits down with industry legend John Fleming to explore his latest book, New Economy: Flexibility, Freedom, Rewards. Discover where direct selling fits in this transformation, how simplicity has become the new gold standard, and why this is our time for evolution and refinement. But before we begin, we'd like to thank this episode's sponsor, OrderGroove. OrderGroove powers smarter subscriptions for serious direct selling brands. As the leading subscription platform for the world's fastest growing direct selling companies, OrderGroove turns basic auto ship into a high-performing growth engine, driving recurring revenue, improving distributor retention, and maximizing customer lifetime value. OrderGroove's flexible API seamlessly integrates with any e-commerce, commission, marketing, or homegrown system. Ready to future-proof your revenue model? Discover how OrderGroove can help you boost retention, drive revenue, and empower your distributors. Visit ordergroove.com to learn more. Now let's welcome your host, Wayne Moorehead, and his guest, John Fleming.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of DSN's Direct Approach podcast. I am your host, Wayne Moorehead, and today I'm honored to welcome a very special guest. He was inducted into the Direct Selling Education Foundation Circle of Honor. He's a member of the DSA Hall of Fame and was honored as the first recipient of the Direct Selling News Lifetime Achievement Award. He's also been honored as a DSN legend, and he was publisher and editor-in-chief of Direct Selling News. He's been a friend and mentor to me and to so many of us, and one of the channel's greatest champions. I'm very honored and excited to welcome John Fleming to the podcast today. John, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure, Wayne.
Well, I've really been looking forward to this conversation. As I mentioned, you've had such an incredible impact on all of us and on the direct selling channel, not just as an executive, not just as an editor, but all the work you continued to do advising us, advising the channel, whether you're on the board or advising at the company level, and also with all the incredible work that you've continued to do. And I'm excited to dig into some of that work today. And I'd love to start out. A few years ago, you released a book called The Ultimate Gig. And this was instrumental in helping us in direct selling understand the shifting professional and economic landscape, that shift towards greater freedom and flexibility. And you have just recently released a new book called The New Economy that delves in even deeper to how millions of people are breaking free from these outdated structures of the past, taking greater ownership of their work and their future. And I know that we're all excited to learn more about that today. So I'd love to start out with understanding what was the inspiration for this latest book.
Well, first of all, I love to write. And as a result of my friendship with Dr. Robert A. Peterson over many, many years now, he's taught me how to be a student again, Wayne. And there's always so much to learn if we take the time to kind of step out of our box and then really explore what might be happening. And in this case, it's marketplace dynamics that I became interested in originally back in 2018. And when we decided to explore to better understand the phenomenon of the gig economy, it was really to get into research, understand stats and facts, and then attempt to interpret some of those into insights and perspectives. And the first book, as you just mentioned, thank you for that, it was titled Ultimate Gig, not The Ultimate Gig. because at that time we could not identify the ultimate gig. And of course, the book kind of left you assuming that the ultimate gig would be a matter of personal choice. And I still hold that position today. We would never define a particular ultimate gig, but there's so many choices, and that led to let's take a look at another book that takes advantage of what we have seen beginning in 2018 as we now come into the beginning of another great year, 2026. So the work is ongoing, and my motivation was basically let's summarize again another moment in time and express more so insights and perspectives now, along with data, to stimulate thinking. So the book is really designed to stimulate thinking. And I think that if we can continue to do that, we better understand how best to compete in a marketplace that's probably more exciting than I've seen in the past, I can say 50 years.
Yeah, it is such an incredible time. And I think your book accomplished exactly that. The research is incredible. It really helped me, I think, overcome a lot of my understanding and biases. I thought the gig economy was working a certain way. It's had a huge impact on all of our lives, on all of our businesses, but there was so much about it that I didn't fully understand. And it's continued to evolve so much, over the last 5 years. And that's where I'd like to go now is how has the gig economy evolved? Where do you feel that we are at today?
Well, I think it has evolved, and in many ways, it is what it is. It has helped us to understand that work can be defined and accomplished differently. And that's the big message. And as we came out of the pandemic, more and more people seemed to gravitate toward work that offered flexibility, freedom, and fair rewards for time invested. I think that's one of the big stories of the gig economy. The gig economy became proof of concept, if you will, that this way of working would be appealing to more and more people. Now, when you get under that and you take a look at the fact that human resource professionals were paying attention to flex work opportunities 10 to 15 years ago, the gig economy is a result of technology and new trends, whereas we started to redefine the very meaning of the word work itself. Now, this is perspective. But work does not have to always be done in a traditional manner. It, from our point of view, wouldn't make sense to look at it that way because everything changes. Our cars change, the way we live changes, the way we access products and services changes. So it would be natural for a 100-year-old work model to also begin to redefine itself and perhaps change, if not innovate or transform. So the gig economy really becomes proof of concept that people gravitate toward flexibility and freedom. And that's why those words, along with rewards, become our tagline once again for the new book. So when you think about that, it's a wonderful thing to have freedom of choice. And if one can find a way to work in a productive way without the rigidity of being told exactly when you need to show up and where you need to show up, then that becomes a great new opportunity and possibility for the masses. And that's what we see happening here, is that the gig economy kind of led to a redefining of work. And by the way, McKinsey, Deloitte, Gartner, all of the major consulting firms had started to talk about the redefinition of work quite a few years ago. So now I think we're beginning to understand that we can work differently and we can work and find flexibility and freedom at the same time. So this becomes a wonderful thing. And think about how accommodating that is to people who do have responsibilities, be they family or otherwise, whereas traditional work becomes somewhat of an obstacle. So now we have new choices.
Was that desire for greater freedom, to be able to craft your own professional development, was that always there and just kind of waiting for the technology to enable it, or did it come out of maybe a fatigue and frustration of an outdated work model?
I think it's some of both, Wayne. Uh, there's a lot of debate about the traditional work model and whether we will go back to it. And as you know, some companies are insisting that people come back to the regular work hours. I think that that will be an ongoing debate, and I do not desire to try to take a position on that.
Okay.
So it was a little bit of frustration, but also interest in what does freedom really mean? And I read a book many, many years ago, and it happens to be about the story of Amway. And it was written by Paul Kahn. And the title of the book was Uncommon Freedom. And it was the story of how Amway evolved from really a thought process and being able to bring free enterprise to the masses that really was a big driver in the origins of Amway. And then you have the products and services that have grown over many, many years now. I do not think that we can expect people to reject flexibility and freedom when it is a possibility. So I think it's very difficult to put a stake in the ground and say people don't need flexibility and freedom. They need rigidity in the workplace. That to me doesn't play out too well. I think freedom wins.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean that people won't choose to work in a traditional manner, but freedom of choice is very, very important. So we'll have the opportunity to do both, and both can be complementary because in today's world, multiple income streams for people that are looking at how does the income come in becomes a real possibility.
One of the data points from your research that really stood out to me was showing that the gig economy, this new greater freedom and flexibility, is growing 4 times faster than the traditional economy. Can you share with us what some of those driving dynamics are?
The driving dynamics would still relate to flexibility and freedom. Now, if we were to look at the numbers, I think it's important to do so because last year, the aggregated consensus, which is not really formal empirical data because no one watches it that way, but we do use a number that there were 70 million people involved. Now, when we look at the growth of that number, when our group started to pay attention to the gig economy growth and appeal, the number was around 50 million. So that goes back to 2020. So between 2020 and 2024, we go from 50 to 70. The projections are that the compound annual growth rate of approximately 16 to 17% will continue now, some say through 2030. So I would not want to try to say that that will hold because compound annual growth rates, when they're that robust, tend to tailor off. But that's a huge growth rate in today's marketplace. It warrants attention. And what it does mean is that in a couple of more years, by the end of 2027, we'll have over 100 million participants in this country alone. Now, China, from many estimates, may be at 200 million participants in what we call the gig economy. That's a lot of people. And it means that a lot of people are gravitating toward flexibility and freedom. I think it also means that the workforce will shift a bit in terms of employees versus independent workers. Now, we know from data that we have collected that we could be close to 50% of all companies engaging independent workers in some form even today. That's a lot. So that means that the growth in the workforce looks to be more independent worker, independent contractor, independent entrepreneur versus employee. So those are some of the things that we think behoove many of us, especially those of us who are involved in channels of distribution or business models, whereas we engage people from all walks of life. And this is not appealing to one segment in the workplace, by the way. It's appealing to all segments. And you perhaps may have a question about whether it's more appealing to young people or more mature. And I would say right now, from all of the evidence that we see, it's appealing to all segments in the workplace. And you may have noticed, Wayne, that the fastest growing working segment is the age group 60 and above. Those are the fastest growing segments of workers in the marketplace. Now, that's amazing. So there are other implications behind those kind of stats, such as retirement programs not working out, people feeling that they want to be more in control and not just sit and wait on life to work itself out, but to be more in control, as I say, of being the architects of their own destiny. And then you have the younger generations that have a difficult time understanding how we ever went to work and stayed in one place 9 to 5. That's difficult for them to understand. So the dynamics are really very interesting and very, very positive toward freedom of choice is a big thing, and it's an uncommon freedom.
It absolutely is. And those numbers of individuals participating here and globally are absolutely just staggering. And you mentioned that this drive for greater flexibility is appealing to all segments. But also, one of the statements that really stood out to me is you said that there is no average gig worker. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, that probably goes back to some of the conversations I have been in where people will tend to describe an average as being meaningful. And what I'm really saying there is that we've learned to be careful about trying to establish averages because no person wants to be described as being average. And when you're focused on freedom of choice, if I decide that my involvement is great for me and I am satisfied that I am earning in a manner that's great for me, I'm not necessarily looking at what I'm gaining per hour invested. I'm looking at what I am gaining from the effort invested and the time that I can put in. So sometimes when we talk about averages, we are comparing the hourly wage reward to something else. And what we know in the gig economy is that people from all walks of life are satisfied to different degrees. So what satisfies one may not satisfy the other. And when you have freedom of choice to work the way you want to, when you want to, from no particular constraint of geography or time zone, then that's a wonderful thing. So that's the only thing that was being implied when you pick up on that verbiage that we may have used, that there's no such thing as an average gig worker.
You mentioned the shift over the last few generations. I grew up, my father worked for one company for 40 years. And then I remember as I was entering the workforce, the discussion was, oh, it's going to be a big shift. You'll probably work for 3 different companies over the course of your career. But you get into the concept of individual work design. And do you see this generation coming in now, those that are moving through their career, of looking at another shift where it's more of a portfolio of experiences versus just working for a few different companies?
I think it is a portfolio. And stats on the gig economy show us that 60% of gig workers are now working multiple gigs. So when you attempt to look at the motivation for that, first of all, the simplicity of most of the work models allow you to do more with less. Technology is the big enabler. So gig workers have gravitated toward working multiple gigs because, first of all, they can, and there's no restriction to being able to do that. And that means that you now have multiple income streams. So if you have multiple income streams, there's one theory that says maybe that's more stable in changing times than one income stream. So I think in terms of longevity, people will begin to play a bigger role in designing exactly how they work. And that may be a traditional form of employment and multiple income streams that can be developed beyond that. So, in terms of whether a person works for one company for 5 years or 25 years, I don't think that that's really the issue. I think that that's a choice. And many people may still be very comfortable with that choice, and that's a good thing. And many jobs are going to require people to be in a fixed location working alongside probably a bot versus another human being. And that's okay because the work will get done. And we believe, those of us that believe in free enterprise and the growth possibilities associated with how we improve life and work on a continuous basis. And we have ever since the beginning of time. So why should we stop improving now? The essence of that belief is that we will continue to improve. We'll just do things differently. So I don't think it's important to necessarily try to understand whether people are going to be working one job or two for 5 years or 20 years. Freedom of choice, again, is a pretty neat thing.
Yeah, I'm amazed just over the last few years as I've interviewed candidates for roles at the company that I'm at. It seems like almost everybody, they're now listing, there's pride around, oh, I also have a photography business on the side. I also help develop websites. I am a freelance designer or writer. And that's become common, where I think it used to almost feel like a sign. If somebody had another, gig, it would be considered
Yeah.
a distraction or potential disloyalty to the company. But now it's almost expected. And as a hiring manager, I love seeing that someone is out developing other skills and continually learning and growing in other areas that they can bring into the company. I think that's a really interesting phenomena that's happening. So for 120 years or so, direct selling was the original gig opportunity. As this started to become more commonplace, where did direct selling fit in individuals' consideration set? Where did it fit? And did we miss an opportunity to really capitalize and take a leadership position then?
Well, I would never personally say we missed anything. I think that the need to change, adapt, innovate, transform is always real. And sometimes we are fortunate to be able to really understand how to approach it early in the game, and sometimes it's later in the game. And you know that from your personal experience as a marketer. So I won't say that we missed anything. I would agree that direct selling appears to be the original gig, and it was created as a model that took products and services to people that could not come to locations to gain the benefit of a product or a service. So that goes back to the origins of the model. And I think the gig economy is a great connector of people who have a need for a product or service with a provider that's willing to provide that product or service. So when it comes to direct selling, I think that so much innovation and progress is taking place right now that we will soon catch up to gaining more market share as a result of one of the most unique distribution models, business models, perhaps ever created. And that's the way many of us feel, including you and your audience that obviously listen to the messages that you bring forth. I don't look at it as being catching up. I look at it as being a period of evolving and fine tuning to perfect a model that is really very, very unique. Because a direct seller, unlike a transactional gig type opportunity, has the ability to be part owner in the brand and also the relationship with the customer and another brand partner that may choose to also engage in the activity. So it's a wonderful model. And I don't think that there's any such thing as back to the future or perhaps spending too much time on thinking about what we may have missed. It's what we are doing right now to perfect, fine tune, and take advantage of what we now know to be the distinctions that make this model of distribution a fabulous one.
I love that. I agree. I don't think we've missed an opportunity here, and I love how you worded it. That this right now is a time of evolution and refinement for us and our business model. I'm curious, what do you think some of the things we need to be doing as a direct selling channel as a whole, collectively, to really stand out and make sure that we're the relevant choice in this new economy?
Well, one of the things that I have felt to be very important ever since we started our study of gig economy, and now we have moved to new economy, because the gig economy is the gig economy, and it'll still be a label used by many people. But the new economy embraces the idea that the masses are now able to participate in a different way, own a portion of the brand, own a portion of the work, own a portion, if not a great portion, of the relationship with consumers and other brand partners. Now, I have always been an advocate of customer acquisition and retention as being fundamental to business building. And that's the piece I think that we are now beginning to understand better as being a fundamental component of the new business models that we use going forward. Because you really can't have a business from our point of view, from our perspective, without a focus on customer acquisition and retention. And I tend to use the franchise model as an example when I get into conversations about this. Franchise models grow by increasing the number of franchises, but if you hone in on any one, and let's just take McDonald's as an example, McDonald's doesn't grow franchises if it's not selling burgers. And they measure burgers every day. Every franchise measures the number of burgers being sold every day. So if you take basic concepts like that and you can associate that theory with any brand, we have to have a base of consumers that love what we offer, be it product or service, to establish the value of the opportunity to acquire, retain, and build a relationship with such a group. Because traditional retail doesn't allow the masses to be a part of that relationship. So direct selling, if we are focused on that, and I think we are, this model allows the individual, regardless of walk of life, to first of all identify and select a product or service that you believe in. And if you find it through a direct selling brand, and then you love it to the extent that you want to share it with someone else, that's the essence of a business. Now, the business takes on many dimensions from that point because it becomes customer acquisition and retention, which you can gain a portion of that benefit. And then it becomes the ability to duplicate what you're doing into other people. So our business model is quite simple. I think at times we have perhaps complicated it a bit. So the challenge for us going forward is perhaps to just make sure that we are thinking enough about the real challenge, and that is to gain more market share in the marketplace through brands that offer much more of a personal relationship with the person who introduces the brand.
Are you ready to revolutionize the way your direct selling company accesses industry insights? Introducing the DSN Library's Smart Search, an AI-powered tool that puts over 2,000 curated assets at your fingertips. From compensation trends to emerging markets, answers are just a click away. If you're already a DSN supporter, then you have access to Smart Search right now. If not, it's time to check out our updated program. Starting at just $1,000 per month, your entire company can get access to the channel's most comprehensive collection of education and insights available. Visit directsellingnews.com/supporter to see a demo of Smart Search in action and to learn how your company can become a supporter now. We also invite you to join us at the DSN Marketing Deep Dive event, February 25th, 2026 in Lehi, Utah, where we'll address the marketing realities facing direct selling companies today. This event brings together candid executive perspectives, practical education, and real-world case studies from leaders who are navigating the same complex marketing landscape you face every day. Visit dsnevents.com today for details.
You mentioned simplicity, and I want to circle back. What role do you think that plays as we're rethinking and evolving our businesses?
Well, I think it's everything. Simplicity is a strategy. Easy to say, harder to do. And if it's not simple, our attention span just will not spend enough time to comprehend that which seems to be a bit complicated. So I think simplicity is a new gold standard, if you will. And it's easy to say we need to simplify, but much harder to do when you sit down and use that benchmark of simplicity as a key component to all of your strategy. It becomes much harder to do. So simplicity is a strategy from this point of view.
Absolutely. And it definitely hasn't been one of our strong suits, I think, over the years. As you said, it is definitely easier said than done, but it will be increasingly important going forward, I think, for our companies to remain relevant. How should we be marketing and positioning the direct selling opportunity and our individual companies in this new era?
Oh, that's a big question, Wayne, and you are a marketer, so you know that question is probably going on in each company, and I think each company will figure it out. From the perspective of consumer and also former direct seller, in many, many ways, I have been in roles as a direct seller, also as an exec, an advisor, and participant in many different ways, indirectly versus directly. But I remember my origins with this business model, and it goes back to being introduced to something that I had never been introduced to before in the form of a brand, trying it, falling in love with it, and believing that, wow, this is great. And so I think that fundamentally, our companies are always looking to identify people and share with people something that we feel to be worthwhile. And when people become familiar with us and become their own best customer, they will easily share with others what someone shared with them. And if they do that, they can then show others how to do what they are doing themselves. Now, that seems to be very simple, but I went through that pathway. I became my own best customer. My wife enjoyed the products. We became our own best customers. And then we shared the love. And then we found other people that found it fascinating that we were so in love with products that they had never heard of. So they wanted to find out more about what we were doing that allowed us to seemingly have so much fun and find so much enjoyment. That's how it all started. So one thing led to another, and then I recognized, wow, this is really unique because I can be a part of the distribution system. I can own a piece of it, and I can do this without interfering with what I was already doing at that time. That to me is still the essence of our model. And to be able to have any kind of business model that provides a good product, a good service that is taken to the marketplace in a more personalized manner. In my many years of observing this model, I've never seen a marketplace more receptive to the personalized offering of a product and service. I think that it behooves us to just realize that we are that unique and that in many ways we haven't drifted too much from our origins, but in many ways we are so different because we don't have the same constraints that we had years ago. And I listened to your podcast that you recently did with Betty Perez, and there was a moment there where I had to laugh because she reflected on her days as a distributor, and she said back in the day, and she was talking about 2007. And I'm going back in the day, everything was physical. We had geographical constraints, we had time zone constraints. My wife and I had to jump on planes and trains all the time to get to meet someone else. Our telephone bill went, like a rocket ship. And that was the way we conducted business. Now, today, we have social, we have technology in many formats, we have artificial intelligence, we have no time zone constraints. I can be talking to someone in China, conducting a conversation just like we are conducting now, and we don't even know that we are in dramatic time zone differences. So no geographical constraints, no time zone constraints. We have the wonderful tool of video conference, which we are using right now. So we can find people to talk to anytime, anywhere we are. We have tablets, we have smartphones, we have computers, and one of the three is with us all the time, basically 24/7. So the opportunities for our channel, our business model, are just absolutely incredible. And that motivates us to continue to explore the data points and what's really happening from a research point of view. And as I think about it, it's just being able to understand that the data supports marketplace shifts in the way people purchase goods and services. And we have a most unique way that that can be done that delivers the personal touch when it's often missing in pretty much everything we do on a day-to-day basis. So it's a wonderful time, a wonderful moment in time.
It is. And it's an exciting time where I do believe we are perfectly positioned. As you mentioned, we're now all accustomed to friends, families, and followers sharing products in person, through our feeds, through affiliates. And it's a business model that we really help to develop. And now, as you mentioned, we have the tools and the technology where our distributors are empowered like never before. Another implication that I would love your take on, your book talks about how individuals are not just looking for one gig, but they're doing multiple gigs. What are the implications for our direct selling companies where we are also seeing that same desire from our distributors and brand partners to not have brand monogamy, but brand flexibility and have the opportunity to represent multiple brands simultaneously? How should we be looking and approaching that from the company side?
Well, I think this one can be very sensitive in many ways, but I think it's one of the great opportunities in front of us. I go back far enough to remember agreements where we had non-competes all through the agreement. The higher you rose in rank in a particular company of a direct selling network marketing nature, the more restrictive it became in terms of opportunities to engage anything else. I think that our legal partners have helped us to realize that these are different times and that those restrictions are now being challenged. And when you think about it, it's a little bit contradictory to say that we engage independent contractors, but yet we have restrictions on how independent you can be. So I think that that's new learning for us. And as we embrace new learning, perhaps we focus more on the brand that we are building, not what someone else is building that we may think competes with what we are doing. And if we believe in freedom of choice, I think we have to go all the way. And I think the marketplace is enjoying freedom of choice. I'm not constrained to when I shop. I can do it 24/7. I'm not constrained as to whether I should buy my product from this place or that place. And the facts are there's no consumer that has one brand that they purchase everything from. So if we look at it that way, then perhaps we begin to open up a bit and realize that freedom of choice is a wonderful thing. And we should focus perhaps more on the building of our brand. And it's quite possible that there is something else that the people who've chosen us have also chosen to do. And it's non-conflicting. So I think we have to perhaps open up to a little different perspective that freedom of choice is real, and we don't have to be the only choice, just the preferred choice or one of the choices. And again, everything that we have looked at as we have attempted to better understand this new phenomenon of freedom of choice, that we also have to learn how to be less restrictive and to be more open. And I remember some of the days when I had the opportunity to work at Avon, which you know, and most people who know me know. We had a conversation going all the time that we were building a brand, and it was called AVON. Now, that goes for any company. I don't care whether it's XYZ or ABC. We should have that kind of internal pride that we are building a brand. And when we see it that way, I think we begin to see people a little bit differently. And I think we begin to honor their choices a little bit differently. All of that is simply personal perspective. I have no advice for any particular company. I think every company is going to figure this one out as they see fit for the best interests of their stakeholders and participants.
Yeah, it is definitely an evolving topic. And I think direct selling always lands on the side of greater freedom. So I think we'll continue to see more and more of that.
I think we'll work it out.
Yeah, with our policies and procedures. Another thing that really stood out in your research to me was just the significant percentage of market share that direct selling represents within this new economy. I think the numbers here in the US that you mentioned were about 37 billion in 2023. What do you feel that signals in relation to the channel's resilience and as well as the opportunity for continued growth in this new landscape?
Well, here's one thing that we decided to do, Wayne, and that is not look at the retail number. Because when you mention that number, I think you are looking at the retail number for the US alone. When we look at participants, I think we have a more accurate way to compare if that's what we want to do. So when we look at participants and you take the latest DSA data, which I think is 23, unless 24 is out, let's say we have about 7 million participants, mostly part-time. Less than 1 million have turned this into a full-time career. I think that relationship is something to pay attention to, because often we pay attention to the more career type opportunity a business builder may have versus the opportunity to satisfy more of the masses with incremental income that is quite satisfactory to them. So that relationship is meaningful. Now, if we take the two numbers and say we have 7 million participants in the direct selling channel, I don't really care what the retail number is. That's important for the company. And the company number is what they are doing, not what the collective body is doing. Because now we're getting into guesstimates as much as real data.
Sure.
So when you look at it that way, the gig economy reported in the same manner that direct selling reports for the most part. Gig economy is 70 million, direct selling 7 million. So that's a 10% market share of participants. Mm-hmm. So we're counting participants. And participants are basically the seed in the soil that has the opportunity to grow and multiply. That's a significant market share. Now, we can move that market share from 10 to 12 to 15 to 20. That, to me, begins to open up the tremendous opportunity that we represent. Why do we feel that that's an important thought? And that's all it is. It's perspective, it's thought. But if you move that market share, I think that our collective body continues to grow at a more robust growth rate than perhaps ever before. So we feel it's important to look at it that way. And increasing market share always links to increasing the understanding of who we are, why we do what we do, and how we do it. And why we do what we do is important as often as how we do it. And why we do it has to do with the principles and values and the ethical codes that we operate from. And our principles and values, the founding visions, the the day-to-day adherence to people first and uplifting people, helping people to change, helping people to grow, helping customers to receive more value for whatever it is they purchase for us. And we don't always have to be the best price, but we have to offer value. And sometimes we may be the premium price. It doesn't make any difference as long as the consumer in the marketplace begins to understand that we operate out of some of the greatest values associated with people and how people transact with one another of any business model in existence. I think that that's part of the story that we will tell more and more effectively. It's why we wrote the book, New Economy. There's a big story out right now that needs to be understood as to how people from all walks of life can participate in this new economy, where people can own a piece of it in many different forms. That's different. So that's
Yes,
that's what we see as being the future that we're looking toward.
it is. It is exciting. And I love, John, that you refocused us back on the individual and not on the retail number there. I think that speaks a lot to your leadership style, how you approach the channel. And I agree. I think it's a much better measurement of our impact and influence in this new economy. So as we start to wrap up, I'm curious, what do you feel is maybe one of the most important things for direct selling companies to understand about winning in this new economy?
Well, you might expect me to say this, and that is read the book.
Absolutely.
And I do feel that in reading the book, it will stimulate thinking. And I think thinking is the precious asset. Too often, from personal experience, and Wayne, you may have observed this in your many years of experience as well. But too often, we're trying to solve the problem before we understand the problem. And if we can spend more time thinking, we may realize that it's important to redefine who we are, better define who we are, position ourselves perhaps a little bit differently. And it starts with thinking differently or being open to thinking differently. So if there's anything that we hope that comes out of the book, it would be perhaps it stimulates thinking. And I think for each and every company, there are wonderful assets that are just so very unique. And that internal team, whoever it may be, has the opportunity to really think this through and come out with better solutions, better possibilities, better opportunities that are more unique and more personal than perhaps any other in the marketplace. That's the deep belief that still motivates me after so many years to continue to do what I do to 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 attempt to serve the audience. That's all a book does. Some books are written to entertain the audience. We write to serve the audience.
And I think that has definitely been a thread throughout your entire career and impact that you've had on direct selling. At every role you've helped those around you, whether it's at an individual company or at a DSU or the channel collectively. You have always encouraged us to rethink our position, to think about opportunities, to think about our impact and the influence that we have on individual lives. And I just want to thank you, John. I sincerely, I can't tell you the impact that you've had on me, on my career. And there's not an individual in this channel that doesn't say the exact same thing. It's never a direct selling event unless you're there. So appreciate your continued influence and impact on all of us. Can you share with us the best way for each of us to learn more about the book, where to find the book, and how we can continue to rethink our place in this new economy?
Yeah, the book is available on Amazon, and Amazon has print privileges. And if you go to the Amazon site, just put in the search bar, New Economy, John T. Fleming, and you should go directly to it. We also created a digital platform to house the digital copies. And the digital platform is safetynetresources.info. And we have two formats that are in digital format. And a lot of people like to read books in a digital format today. What we also did with the digital platform, though, we added more resources that may be interesting for any type of independent worker, independent entrepreneur. And the price of the book is the same both ways. If you go digital, you get a subscription, access to other things. And those are the two ways that you can access the book. You just gave me an opportunity, if I could say so.
Please.
We hope
Please.
that your audience reads the book, and go to Amazon and purchase your print copy, and then take a look at the digital platform, safetynetresources.info. And if you like a digital version, one subscription, one time, lifetime, and you get access to the digital version. I think that if we can focus on whatever we have that tells a good story about who we are, we begin to penetrate the marketplace and make the marketplace more aware of how unique we are. So that is one of the objectives of almost any book. If people will read, then hopefully they become a bit more aware of something. And we think in this case, the one chapter in New Economy on direct selling, by the way, is quite interesting. And it pulls out all of the attributes of the model. And Dr. Peterson has always done great work in examining our model and bringing it back to us in an academic format. You get some of that in this book as well. So there's a specific chapter on direct selling in the book, New Economy.
Yeah, the book is so insightful. I encourage all of us to go out and read it. I read it in one sitting. Thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity to learn even more. Thank you for writing this book, for helping us to continue to understand our place and potential in this ever-changing landscape. Thanks for all you do and have done, John.
Thank you, Wayne, for inviting me. Best to the entire DSN team. You do great work. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in. Please take a moment to subscribe and give a 5-star rating and review to help Direct Approach continue to provide more candid insights and interviews for direct selling corporate executives. And don't forget to register for our upcoming spring events at dsnevents.com. Secure your spot now. Thank you for listening and supporting DSN and the Direct Approach podcast.